यदृच्छालाभसन्तुष्टो द्वन्द्वातीतो विमत्सरः समसिद्ध्वावसिद्धौ च कृत्वापि न निबध्यते.
Chapter 4, Shloka 22. He who is satisfied with whatever gains come to him, he who is not bound by dualities is jealous of none and is equal in success and failure. He is not bound even as he acts. Usually, all actions of ours are arising out of some or the other, either self-centered gain that we want to have to ourselves or as a reaction to the activity of life. For instance, in the office, a colleague of mine gets a lot of attention and I feel I'm better than my colleague. So I may be acting to prove myself to my boss. Or similarly, I may have this lingering feeling as a child that my parent has a preferential treatment towards my sibling, and I may be spending my entire life trying to prove myself. So either we act usually in the world out of a certain self-centeredness. I want to look good. I want money. I want name, fame. I want to be on the top of the game. I want to be recognized. I want to feel special. I want to be celebrated. Or it is a certain reactiveness to the circumstances of life. In either of the two cases, the action binds you. It pulls you down. It is like a clutch hold that doesn't allow you to rise above in consciousness. What we often refer to as karma, it is a force that binds you down. It doesn't free you up because it is not a pure action. A pure action is when the energy moves into action out of a pure inner core, out of the soul itself, the radiance of the soul, the wisdom of the soul, the beauty of the soul, the power of the soul, the light of the soul. When that love for the sake of love, joy for the sake of joy, service for the sake of service, when that impetus flows into action, it creates freedom. In fact, it even deletes the karma coming from the past. It breaks through all the bondages. But usually we are bound by our action, which is why usually on the path of spirituality, you want to be liberated from this world of activity that seems to bind you more and more to the world of ups and downs, happiness and suffering. It doesn't allow you to be liberated. You're often acting out of rajas, which is a habitual, incessant, anxious activity, often full of ambition for oneself and desire for oneself. Or you're acting out of tamas, a lack of will, a lack of ambition, a lethargy, a laziness, a sort of staying in a non-progress. And at its highest, you act out of sattva, which is a balanced action. But no matter in which of the three gunas influence your acting, your actions keeps you bound to action. Of course, sattva out of the three frees you up so much more. But rajas and tamas, they keep you bound. And thus action is not perceived or felt as bringing you closer to the divine. You feel like activity, action takes me away from the divine. When I have to interact with this imperfect world, it makes me irritated, it makes me angry. And this irritation and this anger keeps me a part of that bounded action of lower nature. But there are two actions. One is the action of the lower nature, automated and habitual and binding, and another is the action of the higher nature, creative, dynamic, creating the world in the image of the divine. And to open oneself to the action of the higher nature, to the action of the divine Shakti, one of the first steps is to learn to be equal. Fundamentally, we are reactive and unequal. Anything good happens in the ordinary perception, we are happy. Anything bad happens, death, decay, failure, even small things like food that is not tasty, or things not working out according to my convenience, or my desire and my mood is off. And when there's a success, there's a victory, when I get the ice cream of my liking or win the match that I worked hard on, I am happy. So the fundamental key to the doorway between living an ordinary life and living a divine life is to remain equal. Now, one of the most common misunderstanding when it comes to equanimity and equality is that equanimity and equality is dry. That no matter what happens, I am indifferent. That sort of a mental dry equanimity is not the real equanimity. Real equanimity is the equanimity of bliss, of joy. And that bliss and joy comes through gratitude. If you can learn to be grateful, no matter what the circumstance in life may be, you will naturally have the diamond in your heart shining, the radiance return on your face, and you will naturally start to be happy. You will naturally start to be joyful, no matter what is going on. Somebody has hurt me. Not denying that that is not true, but that's not the only reality. Can I zoom out a little and begin to feel grateful for the infinite amount of things that are taking care of me, rather than focusing on that one thing that hurt me? To be grateful is the key to get out of the entitlement of the ego. Ego feels entitled for success. Ego feels entitled for fulfillment of desires. And soul is just joyful and loves to be loving and generous and caring and giving, not in a naive sense. That is another misunderstanding, that because we understand of the soul as loving and caring and giving, we get into loving and caring and giving towards other people's egos and lose our own core. And there's no greater violence that you can do to yourself than to lose your own core in the service of the ego of the others. Gratitude is the key to opening that door to feeling the grace of the divine at all moments, whether highs or lows. And a grateful soul is naturally jealous of none. Another key to be equanimous. Of course, it is more difficult to be equanimous when a low comes in life. So it's easier to be equanimous when a high comes in life. But what do we do when a low comes in life? That is when we are reminded of spirituality. And that is when we start craving for equanimity. Whereas equanimity really has to be practiced first and foremost when highs come in life. Whatever highs come in life, you accept with a grateful heart and put the highs at the feet of the divine. And the more you do that, the more easier it will be when a depression comes, when a rough time comes, when hurt comes, to be able to be equanimous. And this entire lesson, by the way, is not to judge other people, whether this person is spiritual or not spiritual, equanimous or not equanimous. It is to be practiced for oneself, inside of oneself. And each one of us is special and unique, and we will find our own unique pathway to discovering and living equanimity. For some people, the pathway will be through meditation. Meditation helps them be equanimous. For the others, it will be about expanding one's heart and feeling the impetus of love, even as one is hurt. One begins to expand one's heart to be able to see broken little children in everybody who's doing wrong to the others. To have a heart like that of a mother's. Each one will find one's own gateway to equanimity. the ability to have a certain sthirta, a certain stillness, a certain silence, a certain calmness, a certain quietude, no matter what may be the outer surface experiences of one's life. And when one acts through that state, every action is a freeing action, it's a liberating action. It's an action that brings forth the divine presence as divine force and action. It's a transformative action. It is a gateway to spiritual action. Such an action is possible. Such an action is ultimately a powerful action. Otherwise, we are often quite powerless. For years altogether, we're trying to change our own patterns of our relationship, change our own family members, change our own colleagues. In vain, we keep trying to change human nature. It doesn't quite work until we find in ourselves a divine presence. And we become an empty instrument to allow that divine presence to come in action. And that can only happen when we are not attached to success and failure. Because quite often our notion of success is not necessarily the divine's notion of success. The two may be very different things. And even as our own notion of success is the same as, let us say, the divine will's notion of success, the divine will and the divine force is not afraid of failure. In fact, many times, the way the yoga of nature works is nature gushes through, rushes through, leaps forward, knowing very well that this attempt of mine will fail. But there is a success even in that failure. Something breaks through and inertia is shaken off, and a pathway is created for generations to come. So very important to understand that even the yoga that is happening in and through us is the yoga of nature. And to allow that yoga of nature to take place by remaining empty, by remaining stable, by remaining equanimous, not clinging too hard to success or failure, opening oneself to the higher presence, force, and will. With that, we come to a conclusion of this video. I would love to hear from you. What moved you? What touched you in this video? Share with us in the comments below, and I shall see you in the next video. I hope you found the video to be useful. If you would like to continue your journey with us, if you would like to help us support you in your journey, click on the link below and join us for a 2.5-hour signature masterclass called the Awakening Karma Yogi Workshop, where we run you through the fundamental stages of awakening to become a Karma Yogi, to be peaceful inside and successful outside. We talk about Swabhava, our true nature, and Swadharma, our soul's purpose, which are the building blocks of a life affirming, not a life negating spirituality. So if you found this video to be useful, click on the link below and I shall see you at the workshop.